We have a small enough group that it's great. So first of all, everybody, welcome. Honored to have Joshua Hughes here, founder, CEO, president, all the things at Blacksheep and Rewild, which we'll discuss here in a bit. But first of all, we'd love questions. So the most effective way that we found on our first webinar was just post the questions in the chat and we'll get to them. Please, I mean, Josh was an amazing resource, super knowledgeable on agroforestry and regen ag. So don't hesitate, don't be embarrassed of any questions, throw them up there so we can get to that when we get done with his talk that he's going to share. Other than that, obviously this is going to be recorded. We will share it out to the Regen Ag channel and maybe to a larger group because Joshua will have a discount for some awesome Rewild products at the end. So we want to support amazing startups that are growing things regeneratively and healing the earth. Cool. So without further ado, let me quickly introduce Josh, as I'm just going to refer to us. Obviously, we're all born around the same time, and that was a popular name since 25% of us are named Josh. Anyways, so Josh, I met him about 2 years ago. Just loved his enthusiasm and passion and what they were doing down in Costa Rica. I had the opportunity to go visit the farm myself right before COVID, so January, February of 2020. It was an amazing experience. I think at this point they were just barely starting to get turmeric or just starting to think about what fields they were going to be able to do to integrate turmeric into their agroforestry. Also, I'm going to just do a quick pitch. If you do need an awesome yoga retreat or eco village or whatever, get his information, look on Blacksheep, sign up for the newsletter and go visit. It's truly out in the middle of nowhere. In the sense that you're 45 minutes away from a town with a grocery store outside of a woman selling food out of her kitchen or her house. So it's a really cool experience. They've done some amazing things rehabilitating the land, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. Josh, I mean, you're from Oregon, you were in corporate, you've done a lot of cool things. I don't want to take away anything. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you and we'll go from there.
Nice, thanks. Thank you, Josh. Thank you all the Joshes in the call. So yeah, my story didn't start in a normal place, probably in the regenerative ag world. I didn't come from the food business. I came from a small town in Southern Oregon, Medford, Oregon, and back in the 70s. I grew up in the 70s and 80s in what I would, pretty much like a redneck town. And my family owned a wrecking yard in the auto business. So I grew up kind of experiencing, well, a lot of nature, and a lot of forests. My life was really outside. My life was camping most of the summers and then trying not to be in class and going out to the lakes and doing everything I could be to engage with nature as a kid. But my family being in the auto business, I kind of had a grounding in this idea that what a lot of people thought of as garbage wasn't. A lot of what people had to throw away, or what ended up in our wrecking yard was a treasure. It wasn't really trash. And I didn't think it was that important of a lesson. I never wanted to turn wrenches as I got older. I didn't want to get greasy. I didn't want to be in a hot wrecking yard or a cold wrecking yard ever again. So I kind of left the small town thing and I moved to Portland. I decided I was going to be in the corporate world and not do anything physical. I thought I'd be in an office or just moving money around the world. And rather quickly, I found my place up in Portland was back in the recycling business, a different sort, but I got into the paper recycling, plastics recycling, and redirecting garbage again, and realizing I'd found something that I was good at, both business development, small business development out of my family's business background, being from a small business family, things you do have to work. So I found a home with this small company in Portland. We were in the right place at the right time, and HIPAA laws and security happened after 9/11, and we started doing secure document and product destruction. And the more I got into that, the more I realized, one, I didn't like being a part of covering up corporate culture through massive document shredding programs. One of the last jobs I did was I shredded all the evidence for Enron in California, and I didn't feel good about that afterwards, realizing what I was a part of. And also what I thought was really recycling and what was kind of saving forests and trees. Mostly was just a garbage program where we sold like the highest value stuff that we could. But the minute the recycling markets were like full, the price would drop and I'd just dump this stuff that we called recycling back in the garbage. So our city of Portland, Oregon, which is very green and has a feel of like being progressive and ahead of things, about half of what we called recycling I was putting back in the garbage and sending off to China. And it was just being dumped on villages, to be frank. So I found I didn't really like being engaged in faux recycling. That felt weird. If I was going to do something, I didn't want to just be a business. And the feeling we had, the vibe of what I do, and the spirit of what I was doing was talking about, you know, helping protect the planet while we figured out what was, I don't know, what was real, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And really what I came to is that I couldn't be a part of the single use culture anymore. So I tried to get more at the base of the problem. I started pulling away from my company and getting into doing regenerative acts. And typically regenerative acts, at least with my attitude, because I tend to want to go after problems, regenerative acts are going to lead you right into conflict with your government or the large companies in your area that are doing things that, you know, you don't approve of. So I started doing forestry work and started doing protecting forests in Oregon. And that's painful. You'll get pepper sprayed at 4 a.m. trying to protect a forest. You'll get, you know, you have to stand in front of loggers, which isn't fun because I come from like this culture. I come from Medford, Oregon. I come from the people who do this work. You know, we don't really make the decisions about what's going on, but standing in front of a young person or a young, older guy that's trying to earn a living in the forest at 4 a.m. when they're cutting a forest that they really didn't make decisions on, it was hurting. It was hurting all of us. And my activism was leading me quickly down the path of pepper spray and batons. And taught me a lot about how far companies like Weyerhaeuser are willing to go to cut down the forest around me. And it taught me a lot as I engaged in politics, how little I could really affect things at the macro level. And that didn't work for my personality type. So I got to work with my friends and started doing like cooperative building recycling services in a little different way. It led us into a couple different things. And we ended up building a small biodiesel collective where we were processing 60,000 liters a month of vegetable oil from restaurants to help a small recycling company run its trucks on its own oil. And all of this pointed me towards getting more engaged in the growing of whether it be food or the energy or the paper or whatever it is we're doing. I wanted to get down to the core of it. So all my research and activism led me into the production of things, which, you know, agroforestry was sort of the natural progress in this, as I wanted to protect forests and I wanted to be engaged in the energy system and the food system, see what I could do, see what was possible. So it led us to a small farm project in Costa Rica. A group of friends had been doing some farming down there. I'll say down here a lot because I really live down there, but I'm in Oregon right now. But a lot of my friends, several of my friends had gone down there and started projects and had been having a lot of help from the government, a lot of the Ministry of Agriculture showing up to do good with you. It's a very small place. Costa Rica is about the size of Connecticut, about the population of Oregon. So it was a really engaged government that had put their money and their mouths both in the right place. And so I found partnership in a government, which was refreshing to me after finding pepper spray for so many years. So I uprooted my family and I sold everything I had, and my shredding company was selling to a larger company anyway. So they paid me to leave, and I was becoming a whistleblower anyway, so it was better that I left. and as I got to Costa Rica and really just dove in with my neighbors and my family. I moved there with my daughter. She was 3, my ex-partner. You know, we moved there as a family. My parents came with me and my brother. And over the years, about 4,000 of my friends and family have come and participated in this, but I didn't know that would happen. We got down there and started a 20-acre farm and got into doing the work of trying to rehabilitate soil, trying to see what was possible with the relationship between the forest and the market, what was possible between the forest and my family. I was tired of having a bunch of no's and not really know what to do. I didn't know what to tell people to do. I was very passionate about stopping the bad things, but that's not enough. And I wasn't like coming up with options to replace Walmart as I was protesting Walmart. So I decided, you know, again, my personality doesn't love that. So we got into the little yeses, and day by day, I've had hundreds of teachers come through my farm, and over the first like 10 years, between students and teachers, literally thousands of people coming through to participate in regenerative ag and learning how to do forestry, and probably 100 different angles of attack on how to apply activism, how to apply good intention to the food service, to the food systems, how to apply good energy to these other things we've started to work with, like building materials and energy, things like biofuels. So we've done a lot of things. We've experimented with about 350 different plants and about 4,000 different people, and we put together a huge team of people that care, and it's come together very organically, of people that care and people that want to support, people that love the jungle, and out of that we've had, well, our principal farm is called Verde Energia Pacifica, which means passive green energy. And our idea there was really to build something that was replicatable, that was doable for people in I quote unquote developing world, people without a lot of access to capital, a lot of access to credit, or a lot of access to markets. So at our principal farm, Verde Energia, we really dove deep into something that was practical and useful, that our neighbors could replicate, that everybody could actually do. I didn't want to just be a solution that a few gringos could afford to kind of landscape and feel good. So we've got to pour through ideas and pour through all the some of the deepest challenges on whether it be energy, food, whatever, climate change, erosion, clean drinking water. And we've come up with a lot of folks and helped refine ideas that really work. And that's turned into, over the years now, a thriving little food forest that with our neighbors, we planted about 2 million trees in total to connect these 2 national parks. And that came with help from the government and help from little and large organizations around the world. But mostly it came out of my neighborhood, out of the necessity for having things like drinking water and topsoil. It wasn't really abstract as things like carbon, but those are the things that kind of price some money out of the north. So in kind of juggling and spinning all these plates and trying to figure out how to really help, we listened to our community first, and then at the same time applying the best of what we have from our culture in the north and what I had brought with like a little perspective on what American culture has done and what, I don't know, some of the progress traps of history. So we've worked very hard to build a program that's integrated with community. And in the last couple of years, especially since COVID, a lot of the things we've been working on are really deep. They're deeply connected to a lot of the issues we're feeling in the last year, and the lack of resiliency in our food systems, the lack of resiliency in our places of work. I think the time is coming. The time is right for regenerative ag, and that word, even regenerative ag, is important because we've thought about the word sustainable for a generation, maybe, or at least for most of my life. And I haven't found many things that I like about the current world that are worth sustaining, that aren't just nature based. So you got to build something that's worth sustaining. And the beauty of this, and from my perspective in the jungle, where I get 20 feet of rain a year, is that the good work had pretty damn near immediate results when it came to nature, and especially in the tropics. A little bit of work, a little bit of nudge, the right trees in the right spots to bring in birds and to bring in a monkey, to bring in squirrels again, so they could do the real work of reforestation at scale. I've really found the longest and easiest lever to pull on to get the most done, and it's trees. It's trees are the lever that are going to save us. And in building this forest, whether I knew it or not, we were building a huge amount of topsoil and a huge amount of biodiversity that we got to be a part of enabling, I guess would be the way of saying it. But when we did that, it started paying back in no time. What I thought would take 50 years, or what I thought I wouldn't even see in my lifetime, planting trees. Again, I'm from Oregon, where we get 3 feet of rain, not 20 feet of rain. So I got to see this kind of time lapse of what's possible, what nature can do. And so I'm a bit possessed by the positive outputs that I've seen already, by the feedback loops, by the way that what I planted to feed birds and bring in birds so my mom could enjoy hummingbirds and scarlet macaws turned into a huge biodiverse forest that now has a surplus of topsoil. And that surplus of topsoil, it's now my mission and all of my friends' mission and our Blacksheep mission. This is why Blacksheep was born, because we figured out some things that were really low in energy input, high output techniques, really biomimicry, following like some of the pre-Columbian ways of Central and South American farming techniques, and not doing it in a romantic, over romanticized way that's here to say that indigenous people all had it figured out, but to look into what has worked and what hasn't worked, and then do something that we probably all want to do, which is not take more out of our account than we put in. Like, and it doesn't work forever. We keep printing more money and we make interest cheaper and cheaper, but we use somewhere between 10 and 100 calories of energy to get every 1 calorie into our bodies or into our lives to support our lives. And that's we're really feeling the pinch of it in the form in the way pollution is and the things that are catching up to us, like topsoil loss and climate change. Like, those bills are coming due. We don't get away from them. And that calorie exchange is very real. And I went down and did this $1,000 a month or $1,000 at a time with my friends in the jungle. I didn't have the money to really throw at it and try things that didn't work. So Black Sheep was born out of this wrecking yard attitude, where I have to build my own tools. We have to do things that are possible and replicatable. I'm not here to preach from the mountains. I'm living at the bottom of the valley, down in it, planting it, learning what worked, learning my body that going up a hill and planting trees all day long cost a lot of calories. And I want to be realistic about what it means to plant 1 trillion trees. And what I can tell you all is this, is if we do it right, this isn't a cost. This is an investment, giant investment in our kids, in our own 10 years from now, in our own 5 years from now. And what Josh went and visited, our little jungle, it was clear cut, steep hilled, gone. It was gone. It's Costa Rica is actually accelerated probably 30 years beyond Brazil in the way we destroyed the forest. We did it there a long time ago and no one paid attention until it was pretty much gone. We cut 90% of Costa Rica, or humans did. And so I moved into an area that if Josh would have seen it 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't believe what it is now. But I believe in nature, and I believe in and I don't just believe in it because I'm an atheist. I'm an anti-theist. I don't much believe in things except love. That's about the only thing I've ever really believed in. And now I believe in nature's ability to regenerate itself. Now, our business model has incorporated all that. Black Sheep has worked really hard to bring externalities into the spreadsheet, to start thinking of things like my neighbor's health and my neighbor's child's ability to go to college, not as some kind of externality or problem, but as part of the solution. Like regenerative ag, maybe I know it's way too much focus in this world on the soil health. The soil health is a byproduct of what we've done in our community. The community health has created healthy soil, and I can go both directions, but we didn't have healthy soil to start with. So our first job was to listen to our neighbors, not to show up with ideas, although integrating the perspective of my Americanized, whatever it is, my family in the Pacific Northwest, it's been a great experience on all ends to integrate perspectives. But we dance a delicate dance, not to repeat history, not to dig what I've heard called progress traps, like the pineapple industry and the banana industry where I'm at may have started, seeming like a good idea for bringing in jobs, but now causes cancer en masse. So, we're really working not to repeat history, not to be neo-colonialist by accident. So I have a big team of people that really care, really are highly educated in a lot of different angles, not just ag. And that's why we have success. And at the end of the day, all of this being said, we're putting about $4.50, $5 into a product that we sell for $27. So it's good economics. It's a matter of getting these stories and things that getting traction, getting out to the world. That's my mission now. That's why I'm just not in the jungle planting trees and trying to make sure that customers know and businesses know that there are supply chain answers. We can supply ingredients and keep the ethics in line all the way through the supply chain if we want to do it right. And in the way that we are farmers first in this, we're bringing farmer perspective from the jungle up, and it puts us in a position to be advocates for the farmers for real, not just like middlemen talking about doing something green with 1% of our profits. Instead of paying our neighbors, like our neighbors that get paid 15 cents a kilo for turmeric, they get $1.25 a kilo in our network. So we're leaving the money on the ground. We're leaving the money there in the community to do the real work, and let people have choices. So Black Sheep was really, really about that, about listening and about acting on that, and then helping enable choices. So please ask any questions. I'm really passionate about this subject. I have a ton of detailed information, and I have a very detailed pro formas and things where we've laid out what it means to do regenerative ag from near destroyed steep hills all the way to 28 years later when you're pulling a tree out of that area to make furniture. We've worked really hard and have live-in accountants and live-in lawyers over the years to help explain regenerative ag to people in the banking industry and people in the investment world so we can all really feel and see what it means and quantify this work we've done without getting too compartmentalized and losing the spirit of it all. We've worked really hard to create this. So I'm happy to share that. I'm also happy to talk to anybody else in the ag business or in regenerative ag, because we need more products. We're doing blends and products. I can source ingredients for others, and I need ingredients from others. So we don't just come to farms and farmers with ideas and preach about it. We're showing up with demand now, and that may be the magic of Black Sheep, is creating a direct demand right to the farmers and single sourcing things in a way that leaves the wealth and leaves the story like for real. It's a real story, a real connection to the farmer. And I'm honored to be here and talk to y'all. Thank you for having me here.
So, Josh, real quick, I know you sent me some pictures, but unfortunately I don't have my WhatsApp connected. Do you have any pictures that you could share, or Richard could give you? Are they accessible on your computer?
Yeah, sure. I could do that. It's on my phone, but yeah, I can send them over to you.
Okay. I was just hoping you might be able to have some, because there's some gorgeous shots.
Yeah, well, and I've got a lot of good video, and if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, which I'm finally on I'm on the media. I was off the internet for about 10 years. So I've got a lot of good videos on there that show the daily life, what's been happening this last few months. It's been really exciting. We're expanding our fields right now about 3x from what you saw last year, Josh. And it's got some new machinery in there, and it's beautiful.
Cool. Well, Will, you got the first question. I don't need to read that since it's a small group. Why don't you go ahead and ask away?
Sure, yeah. So I was just wondering, as agroforestry is generally a longer term investment, you did mention that the trees are sprouting up faster than you thought, but generally it would still be longer term. How do we approach funding this? As you know, the funding lanes, if it's not within 7 years for a VC, then it's not a deal.
Yeah. Well, that was the mission. I mean, in the beginning, I was just doing trees, and I couldn't really get people to think about 25 years down the road, because you start getting some thinning out and getting some volume out at about 8-9 years to sell some posts or whatever when you're doing trees. In about 18 years, you start getting some things you can sell. But you're not going to recover money for 25, 30 years, but then it's real. I invest about $15 into a tree, and in 28 years, I'm getting, not even adjusted for inflation, I'm getting $1,500 for that tree. So that's very real. It's a huge margin, and in a place like Costa Rica, it's watering itself. So we have a unique opportunity, but it's spring all year. But we had to come up with these shorter term crops that would help get both people, the farmer, over the hump faster, because to get them to switch from like cattle to this, they can't wait 10 years for the first payback. Forget the investor, the farmer can't do it. So, one thing is we don't do this on every inch of a farm. So someone who's been doing cattle, they can continue to do that, and we start inching in. We bring the borders and the edges in. We take the sensitive areas and we start working with those first. So it's an and not or thing. You don't put the farmer in that position day one where they have to like quit something. It takes a few minutes or a few years, three years to get certified organic, and then regenerative is another step, right? That you're doing a lot more steps, not just soil steps, but everything from local governance to how much you're paying people, all that stuff. So there's a lot of that to factor in, but that's why we leaned in on some shorter and medium term crops. That's why things like turmeric came up for us, because we wanted a crop that could be fully developed and make real volume in these integrated systems. So I go out into a field where maybe it's not worth it at all to just reforest, because like you need to just maybe fence it off and let the birds do it. But if you want like a reforestation project to happen, you need to get some people out there and plant some trees. Turmeric is one of these crops that gets you out there early, that gets you out there, and it motivates some real finance. Like you get real money per meter. I get about 15 times more than what I plant out of turmeric, and it doesn't rot like the tomatoes. It's a much less sensitive crop. So for me, turmeric, ginger, a couple other staple crops have been the shorter term key to getting investment and getting people excited about that. Now, doing that in a competitive way, it didn't just happen either. Like, to grow a regenerative organic product, to do it with the care that we do it and keep integrity through the system, we needed to do some of the value adding parts. So Blacksheep didn't see this. We're not looking at this like it's not in a vacuum. We had to come up with solutions that help farms get it and help investors make it worth it. So investing in the value adding part is where you can make some real money and then start feeding people back some of their investment capital, and while you get through to those trees. And we're hoping in the long run that to like tokenize the tree trusts that we're building, so that people can partake in like longer term slow money with that. And it's what I'm doing for my own retirement. I've planted trees 15 years ago that are for my daughter when she has kids in a few years or whatever. So, I've been doing this, and most farmers in the world historically, they have the trees they're going to build their kids' house out of already growing. So, it's a delicate balance, but the short answer is a mix of things. We're biodiversified, from turmeric to ginger and the 1-year crops, to cacao and those 3 and 5-year crops, avocados, jackfruit, and other things that come in. Really low input, high output trees that produce things like jackfruit and breadfruit. These things are some of the best ag products that are around for bringing in like the high protein, high fat stuff. It replaces the cattle market again, the local protein and fat market. So we've got a mix of hundreds of plants to do this. That's the shortest answer I can give. But take a look at my pro formas, and we've really done this in an open source way for you to look at and read and understand how we get each meter up to profitability, and how we can integrate everything from the tree carbon exchange programs, which help start paying back sooner, to other services like regen networks, helping us quantify things like how much carbon we're storing, how much water and erosion we're controlling, so we can get paid for environmental services too. So that's all helping integrate and pay back a little faster for investment. But it is a challenge. It's a challenge of us in the topsoil game to get people in the real estate game to move a little bit of money into building topsoil, not just building buildings. And what it means to invest in topsoil, you don't want to just buy something and then build it and leave. Once I build these trees you see around here, they're all nitrogen fixing trees. They're all doing the work of many people. They're doing the work of keeping bacteria there and fungi there. So in this photo, it might be a little simple, it might not look like much to people, but this was all cattle as far as you could see 15 years ago. And these trees are now back feeding the system. And some of these trees are already available to go and cut and sell as posts for farmers and cattle people in the area, so they can keep their fences going. So there's a lot of ways that we've mimicked our neighbors, actually, to have farms actually work in the middle of nowhere and not be broke. So it's a deep integration into local technology and what I'd call IP, but that's not intellectual property. That's indigenous protocols, and we follow indigenous protocols for this stuff.
Great. No, thanks for the answer. So in other words, invest in trees. No, Eric.
Yeah, and mix it up with shorter term stuff underneath, so you can make some money in a year, not
so
just 10.
Diversify.
That's what we.
Eric has a question, and then Matt, feel free to just jump in after Eric, and when Josh is done with Eric's answer, and we'll get to Julie in a sec. Cool.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Josh. I was wondering, when you were talking about creating demand for farmers, is that most often with a crop that they're already familiar with growing, and they're growing, and you're bringing like a more premium market to them for that? Or is it often introducing something new?
Well, so far with the lumber, they've been doing this as a local trade for a long time. So that's something that they're pretty dang good at where I'm at. But where we're at, they'd pretty much given up on food production, because little story, but they gave land away 70 years ago to get people out of the cities, if they'd make it useful, quote unquote. And once they cut it down, it took only a few years to wash away the topsoil. So we ended up a monoculture of grass. It's pretty much just cattle out there. So I wish there was more food production or anything I could have come to people with. And there is in the different parts of Costa Rica. There's thriving coffee, and that's coming along too in a regenerative fashion. So I want to support it. But really, Costa Rica was the center of bananas and pineapples and cacao. It's a supply side country that it's not pretty what's going on the ground for food production where I'm at, or farmers at all. They were pretty much going extinct, as most farmers are. So the answer is I wish, and we're trying to replace cattle on these steep hills. So and it already wasn't working. So people were already fleeing and moving to the city. So our answer has been figure out something that can help people have choice, not to have to go do urbanization, just keep losing their children to the city culture. And so what I've shown up with is demand for some high value superfood stuff like turmeric right off the bat, because we have demand for that in my circles. And there's a lot of businesses in Oregon and California that were reaching out for these kind of things. So being in the spice trade, it's easier to value add dried goods, things like this, instead of trying to move like a perfect little pitaya or dragon fruit around the world. I didn't really want to jump right into that. So we got into these more resilient crops, things that we could help value add. Things that had resins, and things we could even value add more, because we could do like extraction, take out essential oils and resins. So in choosing these products, we chose stuff that they can make a lot of money per meter on, and we chose stuff that grows in marginal soils to start with. If I was in a different region of Costa Rica, there's already black soil this thick, and they're already making stuff. I will plug that in, and we will come with that. And I do have needs right now for black pepper and for vanilla, so that's where I show up to other farms and not just talk about techniques, but show up with the demand and a contract for that, for the blends we're making, and for the market access we've been kicking the door down on. My small neighbor farms, they have no money to go and do market research or go to, and so like we've been that conduit, and we're just helping building more and more ingredient market access. Everyone from co-packers to large producers calling us up to try and have regenerative ingredients. People are being asked by their customers to do it, and there's a few of these focal points where, like with co-packers, where we're making a difference on small single sourced ingredient stuff. And now we're responding and going back down south and getting our neighbors to grow stuff that maybe they're more accustomed to, like dragon fruit for dyes, for smoothies, for school districts, things like this. So it's really a real direct connection. I'm not just selling to the world markets. That's a way to really make nothing. As a farmer right now, we're finding customers that care, that want like 500 kilos from a farm they know. And that's working for us so far.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can follow up with the next question. I think this is really awesome to hear about, and is kind of similar to what to an endeavor that we've been experimenting with, which is doing essential oils more of like Mediterranean plants here in the Santa Rosa area, north of San Francisco. And since we're very early in this venture, I'm kind of curious, like you're talking some cost earlier. Is there labor accounted for that, and how do you feel like that would translate to a U.S. market? And I guess is there any advice that you'd give looking back at it?
Well, I chose Costa Rica for a lot of reasons, and it's a much different market when it comes to cost of doing business, for sure. Although we've adjusted what we pay up, we pay 12 times more per hour than our neighbors were making when we got there. So it's not like we're there getting really cheap labor or anything. Up here, there's a lot of advantages. I don't know if you've met David Bloom. He's a friend of mine there in south of the Bay as well, growing turmeric in Watsonville. But up in the States, there's an amazing opportunity with such close access to markets. I'm a long way from markets, so I have to really preserve food. I have to deal with import, export, shipping things further. Deal with the fact that I'm in the tropics to begin with, so things are rotting immediately once you pick them. So there's some challenges down there that I'm enjoying the challenge up here in Oregon, even though it's more expensive and I have less rain. Everything's not rotting. My clothes are not rotting right now. So there's these other things that I see as advantages up here, and the waste stream up here has an immense amount of calories in it. And that's what I mentioned David Bloom's name for. Businesses like farms that are choosing to figure out how to grab the calories from their region, whether it be the waste from the food production in the region that's already happening, getting that to energize your system, whatever that means, from your soil to your like they do, to keep the lights on, keep the water heated, keep their processes going. So I see the real close access to places like San Francisco as a huge benefit. You can grow smaller crops and very like micro crops of tomatoes and sell them all, or strawberries and sell them all, where I have to really scale something up pretty far to make it worth it from the jungle all the way to here. And Costa Rica as a whole market is about, there might be 20,000 middle-class households in the whole country, where there's that much in every US city. So it's I see a lot of advantages up here. The CSA movement has given me real hope. Community supported agriculture is one of the reasons I got into food, because I saw the way people will deal directly with farms. And if I was up here, I would be with projects, I would be tethering to those kind of things. Just amazing customers that care already. That's great. And if you can cut out all the middle people, there's a lot of money for farmers to be made. And up here, another thing, I won't talk on this more than I need to, but agroforestry. There's Weyerhaeuser and Georgia Pacific. Those two companies made $30 billion last year off of forestry stuff. So integrate your farm with forestry techniques. And while it may be kind of slow for investors, it's also this slow, solid thing in the background when you're growing things like trees. So I would figure out how to integrate it into forestry however I could, and have some of that like biodiversification that we talk about, whether that be orchards, integrated orchards, or integrated building materials one day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate it.
I had a quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
You had also mentioned that you were doing a co-op. So just wondering like how your co-op is structured, and if part of the people in your co-op are also some of your neighbors and like indigenous people. Just curious about that.
So yeah, there's 4,000 members in the co-op in my little region before I got there in the Putiscal area. So it's a thriving co-op attitude in Costa Rica already. Although it was slow for me to get involved with myself. I didn't even speak Spanish when I got there. So I was like in a book in my pocket every word. So it was really just, I showed up with my family and dug in, and over time we integrated into the community so deeply that they asked us to be a part of it. So we have about 60 people that own the project. About 50 of them are from around the world, and about 10 are from our little neighborhood. Our neighbors that lived there before, that earn shares of all this with us. And we've built like small corporate co-ops where 10 or 20, 30 people own a farm together. And then that connects to Blacksheep, which is sort of a corporate version of a co-op, kind of the binding investment arm and processing wing. And so we built our businesses in this way that they can attach to each other. Not completely need each other, but share things like management, share things like labor, share things like accountants and lawyers, which is like giving access to our smallest co-op members and our smallest farms. They have access to some high quality employees. And I love the co-op model. We built it in small corporate ways, and then we build in the way we communicate and the way we work with our other businesses. We've built in just and open communication systems that leave money on the ground. That's been the real goal the whole time. So. And you're welcome to come down anytime.
Really
come down and plant some trees and talk to the neighbors and see what we're doing.
Practice your Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, Julia, go for it.
Cool. Thanks so much for this talk, Josh. This is amazing. And I'm also from Portland, so it's great to hear that part.
Nice.
So my question is around the funding piece, because basically, as I've been doing research around the transition to regenerative agriculture, it seems like a big roadblock for farmers is having enough funds to be able to ride out that transition period. And it seems like you solve for that with the external funding. But I'm curious, where you get these funds from. Is it mostly from individuals? Is it from firms? And then also, is this necessary for the long-term continuity of the projects, or is there a point where they're going to become self-sustaining? I would assume so, but yeah, just curious to hear more about that.
So our initial farm I built with like friends and family would invest a few $1,000 here and there, and we really had a chance to do a long-term experiment without really the goal in mind. My goal was to have a comfortable place to live and eat fruit with my family, and my daughter to have a nice school up the road that she could go to. So the initial goal wasn't build a regenerative ag super co-op. That's bubbled up to the surface through the needs of our community. But that being said, I don't know. I early on I realized that you couldn't ask anything of a neighbor of mine, that it was very unrealistic that anybody could invest in anything that didn't help. I don't know if they couldn't get over that hump. It was going to take 3 or 4 years to switch the techniques to get things like certified organic, and that wasn't as important to me early on, certifications, but it is now, just because it's part of being in the market. But you have to get over those humps. So what we've done is instead of putting people into debt, which would be repeating history and repeating the worst part of history in Central and Latin America, Central and South America. As a gringo showing up down there, very sensitive to that. So I didn't want to repeat that. So instead, we started this model where we would invest in farms with our neighbors and keep them as owners and give opportunities to. We could fail together. They couldn't fail and lose their farm to us. So we've done it in a way where I might own anywhere from 1% to 80% of a project to invest in it to help it get over that hump. And that's the way we've done it in our 3 farms that we own right now. Now, as we grow, there's another model we're developing where we're doing more land leasing and keeping it keeping it a little, so we can be a little more agile and get out of our region. But it's taken some external investment. Your dollar goes a long way in Costa Rica. It's our big cost it's not like millions of dollars to buy a farm. I can buy, like right now I'm looking at buying another 100 acres for $300,000, and it already has a house and already has 20 acres of ag land. So, it's been worked on. So the costs down there aren't that high. And we've done this in a way that we don't strap projects with any debt. We invest in them, we fail with them. We have the ideas for the crops that we need. So Blacksheep is showing up and investing in a lot of the soil building and stuff and taking that risk with the farm. And yeah, the farms will do very well in just a matter of a couple of years once they actually produce. And this year's our first year of getting product to market from the farms in mass. So we're competitively priced even in this whole thing. So at the end of the day, it's worked out so far. But yeah, I'd probably say I needed to own anywhere from 5 to 25% of my average farm project to or invest in about that much to help them get over the hump, get away from the cattle production they were doing. And where I'm at's in the unique position. Everybody was leaving anyway. It wasn't really producing anymore. We were feeling the vacuum of like no economy left. So where we showed up, it was a different kind of challenge. It wasn't just like, hey, we're changing to organic corn now. It was like, how do we get soil back in this region? So for the first several years, it can feel like nothing's happening. You plant a bunch of trees, you back up. You plant a bunch more trees, you back up. You go and maintain them a little bit, you back up. So again, I use the word and, not or a lot. This is allowing our neighbors to do this while they keep doing what they've done. So it's not like they get cut off day one from making some money. So it allows us to make these slow investments and not take a ton of risk. And our main project, Verdena here, we got to do a lot of this and a lot of the failure. We kind of de-risked all this with our neighbors doing this and as just an act of forestry and love in the beginning. So now they tend to be we have a pretty clear view of what a risk is and what it's going to take to fix a farm. Yeah, ranching.
Cool, thank you.
Ranching is what my area really is. Monoculture grass is what I actually see. The cows aren't the problem. It's the monoculture grass. Costa Rica isn't a place that's supposed to have like those kind of animals. Like the biggest animals we would have down there would be like pigs. So the cattle in Costa Rica was just it's a shame, and we're doing everything we can to remove them. Although when we still have any flat spot, like you don't get rid of the milking cow, you don't get rid of the thing that makes food for the community. It's and not Oregon, and using those animals to maybe help keep the grass eaten while we reforest an area, and then move them out definitely of the steeper lands, get them onto the flatter spaces where they won't hurt the land as much. But they basically built a cob floor of my region. When you mix cow poop and grass and stomp on it with water, you make cob. So I've been hard at work trying to dig through the near cement floor that was built by Burger King in my region.
Yeah, I assume they don't like the cows are not fed like corn or anything like that. There, it's literally just the grass they have in the ground. Is that being grazed?
But they're like
at all,
mountain climbers. It's this steep, so the meat's not that great. It's like they're ripped. It's not like marbled. So beef down there is not even that great for the damage it does.
And they're not doing any sort of like rotational grazing there, like quote unquote regenerative
Sure.
grazing.
Yeah, and I no, because it's so steep, the land, it's like it can't be. Like whenever the cows go out there and eat it, the immediate result will be the rains will wash away anything that's exposed. Like the jungle where I'm at, it's supposed to have a canopy over the whole damn thing. Raindrops really never hit the ground directly. They would hit one branch up 150 feet, hit another leaf. By the time it hit the ground, it had slowed down the raindrop. So the moment we cut the trees down there, when humans really got ahead of nature and ahead of the nature's ability to regenerate, about the time Cortez showed up and left axes behind, we went from taking 1,500 hours to cut down a jungle tree to taking 8 hours. So we've accelerated the time in which how long it takes us to drop a tree, but the rain comes immediately and washes all the soil away. So the best thing I can do to regenerate my area with cattle is use them to get rid of them. And they need to be up here where the herd animals are supposed to be. Plus the jungle's not friendly to cattle anyway. They get bot flies and a bunch of things you have to give them drugs for, and it's they're drier land creatures. So I've had goats, I've had sheep. The animals I raise now are fish. I mix in fish ponds because because fish pond agriculture is the only agriculture in history that's ever actually used less energy than it gets back. So we use like Peruvian techniques of fish in the hills and integrated swales and so that, you know, the poop moves around on its own, and the poop makers live right in the field, so I don't have to carry soil out to make soil. So the only animals I really grow now are fish.
And are you able to sell those, or is that just at the moment just for feeding the community?
We've just been feeding ourselves, but mostly there'll be times where you don't even touch the ponds to eat. They're really just there to feed the soil. And then they're like the way I eat fish is just using their manure directly in the fields to get more greens or more jackfruit or other things. Tilapia, they're yummy, but it hasn't been the main focus. But it is, as we grow, I would definitely add those systems in and expand on them, because it's a no-brainer, really low input, high output thing where we're at. And we get freshwater lobster down at our farm. Anybody ever comes down, we can go out and get crawdads bigger than your hand, and they're really yummy.
Well, I think we have time for one more question, or we can wrap up. Anybody have a question? Or I can ask one, which will be, actually, I'll just ask one, which will lead into this. So you guys also have launched a brand, which you guys I'll share the link, and we have a wonderful discount for those who are interested. Tell us about the process on how you guys decided to, like, you're literally now fully vertically integrated. I mean, from soil to end consumer, being a direct to consumer brand. If you want to just quickly touch on that, how you guys went through the process, and instead of just, just touch on that for us.
Sure. So we had a friend down there that was working at the University of Costa Rica. He's a scientist, food scientist. He was really passionate about turmeric. And we had this opportunity with the University of Costa Rica for several years of free work, pro bono lab work. And they helped us develop the best techniques, most efficient techniques for doing things like extracting resins and essential oils from turmeric and ginger. And a lot of the plants around us are medicinal. So this is good. So we developed the confidence with these couple of products, and the techniques, and now we have the equipment invested in us, and we're building the factory up here in Oregon. But to help value add in the best way possible, to take only the parts of the plant that we really needed and figure out how to get that around the world instead of maybe shipping fresh turmeric and all the water. So our ethics in the way that we grow food need to carry through the whole supply chain. I didn't want to just produce ingredients and end up having them all have the same byproduct of the logistical nightmare. So we got into this to help process and refine, so we could ship less, so we could be more efficient, so we could be more environmentally conscious, all those things, so we could package less. So that led us to being involved in these direct retail products, a few of them, and we're rolling out another product in like a week. I go pick up our first, like, all the way from the farm to us, our powder, end of this week. And so it feels good. Rewild is our expression of agroforestry and of regenerative ag all the way through to the customer. And we're developing that relationship now and working on that brand so that we can keep creating the highest margins possible for the farmers. We're also up here and willing to do things like private label and make products that are in other people's names. Blacksheep has its ingredients side of things, and Rewild is like the forward-facing brand. And Rewild Organic sort of sums up what we do. And we're rewilding nature with every act. So I'm really proud of our products. We not just the way that we grow them, but the community part, which I've leaned in a lot to in this talk, but in the care we take to keep them fresh and raw. Like we don't overheat our products. We bring them out of the ground and get them preserved and right to market. So yeah, we have high quality, medicinals from the forest, and just about every plant around me is a medicinal down there, because that's what humans attended to for thousands of years. And in the tropics, we have the advantage of every plant around me being something that, like, pharmaceuticals want to use. So we've developed like a pharmaceutical grade level of extraction, nutraceutical level of grade of processing things, and I think it sets us apart. And it's a single sourcing type attitude through all that as well. So we get to bring the best parts of regenerative ag and processing to the game. And also the brand helps us go out and find out new demand and go buy from more farms, from everything from the alcohol that's in my tincture to the black pepper I have to mix with the turmeric. I get to go to other farms and pay them better and like inspire them to plant trees.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. But first of all, I did post the link to rewildorganics.org in the chat. Josh, you want to cover what the code Rewild BOGO? I think it's a discount code people can use.
Yep, Rewild
Already used it maybe.
logo. He's going to send it out. We, if you buy one bottle, we'll give you another bottle free. Whether it be the same, if you want to buy a tincture, we'll give you a tincture. If you buy the tincture and want the essential oil, we'll throw that in. Or so use the code to get one for free when you buy something on there. And we're grateful that you buy our products, and they're going to keep getting better and better. Now that we're sourcing more and more directly from our land. So I'm really proud of this. And in about a week, I'll have my powder available too. So if you order this week, I'll throw a little bonus gift in there when I pick up my powder.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much. Also, his link, Josh's LinkedIn profiles in the chat. Feel free to connect with him if you have more questions. I'm sure he's a busy guy, but he'll try to make time. He's very accommodating. So I think big round of applause. I think hopefully it was inspiring chat, and let's support great businesses like what they're doing.
Thank you. And anybody's welcome if they ever want to come to the jungle and plant some trees with us, or just sit by the spring-fed pool. Come down to Verdenergia too. You're welcome.
Great. Well, on that note, thanks everybody for attending, especially you East Coasters and folks in Australia, although it's not that late, it's the next day morning. So, well, and then our Regen Ag group meets every 2 weeks, on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Use the same Zoom link that Richard provided. And I think next week we have 1 or 2 startups that might talk about what they're doing, short little things, and then we'll just have a general discussion. So great. So be active on Slack. That always helps to know people are alive, and share stories and post provocative things. That's okay. So
Nice,
cool.
thank you all.
On that,
get back to you later, Josh.
Thanks, Joshua. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you guys.
So much, Joshes.
take care. Everyone.
Thanks, Joshua. It's awesome. Good job, Josh. Will.
All right. See you later, Rich.
See you, buddy.